Hey, welcome to another edition of the Josh Caray Show. I'm Josh Caray. Coming up, we meet with Trash Pandas manager Joe Kruzel to talk about his upbringing and what he plans to do with his ball club here in the 2026 season. Well, welcome into the Josh Caray Show, everyone. Hi, everyone. This is Josh Caray, joined alongside Trash Pandas manager, the newest manager of the Trash Pandas. That's Joe Kruzel. And first, Skip, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well,
I enjoy this.
Yeah, always happy to have you on board. Obviously, it's only been a week now since you've been the manager of the Trash Pandas. Just tell us what the first week's been like. How's it to be back in the managing swing of things?
Well, it's always good to get back in the dugout, enjoy being in the dugout and being with the players down, and then providing the plan and the process to help these guys improve as the season goes along. So really enjoying it, to be honest with you.
The last several years, you were the head of the minor league operations for the Angels, and you would bounce around from affiliate to affiliate. Just how different was that compared to what you're doing right now?
Well, I wasn't the head of the minor league operation. What my responsibility was as the field coordinator the last 4 years was to make sure, as I went around from city to city to all the affiliates, AAA in Salt Lake, here in Rocket City, Tri-Cities in High A up in Pasco, Washington, Inland Empire, our complex team, and our Dominican academies, just to make sure that from what the big leagues wanted, that we were doing the same stuff in the minor leagues. That was basically my responsibility.
What's probably the biggest things they want from each affiliate any time of year, but what were some of the big sticking points the Angels really harp on?
Well, it's same probably everywhere, right? They just want to make sure, like, that players are ready when they're called up, that they can do the simple things in the game. They know how to take their lead off. They know how to get to their primary and secondary leads. They want to make sure that guys can actually bunt in a game, and then knowing the positioning of where they're supposed to be on all the fundamentals plays, whether it's a bunt play, a cutoff and relay, or any scenario to that situation. So you just want to be able to use the same terminology from the Dominican Academy all the way to the big league, so that it's simplified for the players.
I think, needless to say, so far through the first week, the bats are there. I mean, you got a pretty good hitting team. What do you think of your team's offense right now, and who are some of the guys who've really shined thus far?
I think a lot of the guys have shined, right? It's how you evaluate the at-bat, right? Sometimes your at-bat can change in the blink of a pitch, right? So you could end up being up there with a man on first, and then 2 pitches later or a pitch later he's on third. So the plan and the approach, and I think the approach of our hitters, their mindsets have been outstanding. We've taken some walks. We've been able to bunt for hits. We've been able to sacrifice bunt. We've been able to steal some bases. So it's when you look at the offense, there's a lot more to it than just batting average or OPS. It's on base. It's being able to take an extra 90 feet on a ball in the dirt, or a base hit going first to third, or scoring on a double when you're on first base. So a lot of that is just as important as your batting average. So, but if you look at some of the guys, Wade Meckler and Matthew Lugo have added a little bit to our lineup when they got here, when we got to Knoxville, right? Nick Rodriguez has strung together consistent at bats. Harold Cole, Rowdy Rodriguez has had some moments where his at bats have been outstanding, right? Tucker Flint had a very good homestand last time we were at home. David Calabrese's at bats have really been professional, I guess is a good way of putting it. And Gustavo Campo has been outstanding at the top of the order. I mean, you could go through and Dunham, who got off to a tough start, had a really good last couple of days in Knoxville, right? So some big hits and some good at bats, right? The at bats is the part that they've really grinded out some at bats.
The pitching side, I think it's a little unfair. I think it's safe to say the first time through the rotation, things were a little difficult. Bullpen struggled at times as well. But I really feel the second time through, you've seen Jose Gonzalez, Bryce Osmond, a couple of other guys have looked a lot better second time through. Just kind of give your gauge so far on the pitching.
I think it's typical, right? We all shoot for opening day, right? But when you have 5 starters, there's 5 opening days. In all fairness to those guys, I mean, it's their first start. It's that they have the same jitters that everybody would have like on opening night, right? So you got to find a way to be able to get through that, and I think we did. I do. I think as the series in Knoxville went on, and we were able to get those guys to their second start, and then the relievers in their second appearances, so to speak. So it's really helped to be able to get those guys over that, and they got through it, and they got through it well, right? I mean, it wasn't like a total disaster for any of them. It was a well that they went out there and they competed, and now hopefully as we get into this next series, you'll start to see guys being even more comfortable.
Talk about you a little bit. Toledo born, Toledo raised, and a former Toledo Rocket as well. What was it like growing up in Toledo? And tell me about your parents. What did they do?
What a life I've had, man. Right. So I love Ohio. In case everybody, because I always call Ohio God's country. Right. I enjoy the state of Ohio. There's so many things in there that you really can cherish, and I was very fortunate. My upbringing, right, not the silver spoonish type of situation, but there's certain things in life that you can't put value on, and I think that's what my mom and dad were able to provide, was the caring and the support and the love that they gave us, along with my 3 older brothers. But I enjoy going back to Ohio. I mean, I still live there, live down now in Hamilton near Cincinnati, but still get up to Toledo every once in a while and see some old friends that I haven't seen in years. But it's always good to go back, but very appreciative of what my parents provided for me.
What did they do?
They supported. We didn't have a lot of money, right? So
I think what I'm asking is, what did they do for a living? What was your
my
dad's?
dad was like a carpenter, mill worker, right? Made Anderson windows. Right. I mean, it was like half a mile from the house, so to speak. And then mom was she worked for H&R Block. She was a tax person, so she did a lot too. And both parents worked back then and left us a lot of free time at home, but that was probably not a good idea.
As you went to college and were playing for Toledo, did you see baseball becoming a professional path for you, either as a player or a coach, or were you looking at other things maybe beyond the field to do for a living?
Well, I didn't see playing as a future as I got older, right? And then so I had studied broadcasting because I was going to, if I couldn't play anymore, I was going to try to stay in the game somehow. So I was going to try to be a play-by-play or a color guy and on the radio, because my professor at the University of Toledo told me I had a radio face. So
that makes 2 of us.
Yeah. But he also said I had a radio voice. So that's the part that really intrigued me to, dive into that a little bit. But then was very fortunate at the time at Toledo. We didn't really have a full-time assistant coach when I was playing there. So my senior year, the head coach had talked the administration into providing a full-time assistant for his staff, and I interviewed for the job and was fortunate enough to get it. So this is where it's led me today.
When you were the assistant at Toledo, who was your head coach, and how much guidance has he given you in your career? Well,
Stan was a great guy, man. Stan Sanders, he was the head coach at Toledo for numerous years, like 20-some-odd years, right? A great man and taught me a lot. I was fortunate that when he retired that they promoted me to be the head coach. I was 26 years old. I was the head coach at the University of Toledo Division I baseball program. So he entrusted in me, and the administration put a lot of faith and trust in me, and spent 11 years there as the head coach.
Yeah.
So it was a unique experience being able to play there, be an assistant there, help mold some young men, not only just as players but as good people into the community. Help them become good husbands and stuff, and out in the community. So it was a unique. Not too many people get that path, right?
Right.
Born and raised in Toledo, played at the University of Toledo, and then was able to coach there. And at one time, when I was the head coach there, Nick Saban was there, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows Nick Saban. We used to play racquetball with those guys all the time. But the head football coach, the head basketball coach, and myself, all three of us were former University of Toledo players and coaches before we became the head coach at Toledo at the same time.
Just out of curiosity, when you see college sports today and you compare it to back then, do you think you could ever be a head coach in college athletics, at least right now?
It's tough to ever say no, right? Because you never know what opportunities are presented to you. But it would be a lot different. College baseball today would be a lot different from what I remember it back in 2003, which was and then I spent 1 year at Miami of Ohio in 2005. But just looking back at that, how the scope of the landscape was in college athletics at that time versus what it appears to be like right now from outside, not being in it. So I wouldn't say no. I think you just learn how to adapt. It's kind of like when we went to extra innings in professional baseball, we put a man at second base starting at 10th. Well, we never did that before, right? And then all of a sudden everybody was, oh, we can't do that. That's not baseball. We shouldn't. But now it's normal. It's normalized, right? So you just learn to adapt to what the circumstance would give you. So I would say, yeah, I probably could. I'd have to do some research and figure out the ways of going about it. But I think recruiting would be a lot easier now than it was back then, because you used to drive around into the cornfields and try to find players. And now, the portal and all that other stuff and the way the PBR and all that stuff is today, it probably might be easier to recruit than what I remember it.
Yeah, it's almost as if you wouldn't have to go to the high school ranks anymore. You just pull kids who are in that transfer portal and go from there.
Yeah, it would be tough for a high school kid nowadays to get in and be like a contributor right away.
When you were with Toledo, I always hear about mid-majors and how hard it is for them. I worked at a mid-major at Stony Brook, and I know it's so hard for the football coaches and the basketball coaches. How hard is it winning and getting noticed and getting recognition doing baseball and trying to compete against these Power 4 or Power 5 teams?
Well, not only mid-major but in the North, right?
Yeah.
I think that was always tough sell because nowadays the facilities pretty much everywhere are really up to like the Taj Mahal everywhere, and even in some of the mid-majors they have some unbelievable facilities. But I think the key back then was an indoor, right? You needed to have a place where you could do some baseball stuff to be able to get your kids ready for the season. And we were starting our first game, and the Southern schools already had 20 games under their belt, right? So that was a little tough sell. And you can't sell weather, right? Kids know it's going to be cold there in the early part of the season, and there's not much more you can do about that. So the recruiting part back then was more about the facilities and the weather.
Your first professional managing job was with the Billings Mustangs in 2007, Reds affiliate.
Correct.
Longtime Reds affiliate. And then you returned to Billings in 2021 when it was the first year of the draft league. Now, for those who don't know, the Pioneer League in 2007, those were where guys newly drafted, whether high school or college, they would go and basically learn how to be professional ball players. And then in 2021, these draft guys, they're trying to get noticed and picked up by a major league team. So with that said, what was it like managing the Mustangs in 2007 compared to 2021?
Well, 2007, because back then, everybody that got drafted went to a rookie league, right, rookie level. And it was usually their first taste of professional baseball, and to be able to have those kids when they first come in and try to teach them, and they're coming from all different parts, right? You could have some kids from the academy and the Dominican, and back then there was still a Venezuelan academy.
Yeah.
Then you also had the opportunity to take either a high school kid or a college kid that just got drafted, right, and try to blend them from the different places that they came from, but then also give them an opportunity to learn how to play the game in the professional ranks. So it was unique, right? Heck, Todd Frazier was on that team in 2007, right? And then in 2021, it was an independent league. So you were taking kids that didn't get drafted or had played in a different type of an independent league to give them an opportunity to be seen. And we were very fortunate at that time because we had, I think like 5 guys that got signed off of our club and gave them an opportunity to go play for an affiliate.
Wow. 2008 to 20, you're with the Cardinals organization, all up and down, several different levels. But just out of curiosity, what was it like making that transition from a college head coach where it is about wins and losses to being a minor league manager where, yeah, wins and losses matter, but it's more about development? How did you change your game in doing that?
Well, I think a lot of it is, in some aspects, they go hand in hand, right? Yeah. I think you have to learn how to win in the minor leagues as part of your development. And I think you can't just do, okay, if we work on backhands with this kid, or we work on their jumps, or we work on hitting the ball into the gaps with that guy, or whatever the situation may be for that individual player, you also have to teach them how to play as a team. Because that's the part that's going to help in Anaheim, right? So that's the whole goal, is to teach these guys and prepare them to win in Anaheim. And you have to learn how to do that in the minor leagues as well. It's not just individuals doing stuff and then they go with it and then have a different path for them. It's a combination of stuff. We try to make you better all around as an individual player, but we also you with the understanding that part of your individual development is also a part of being a good teammate, doing stuff in the community. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of like real life Fridays. Well, right. We have Angels teammates, which is a little kid that comes out and hangs out with us all day. Those parts of things are just as important, so that you understand this is the lifestyle that is required from you as you move up.
When you were with the Cardinals, I would say about the first half of your time in St. Louis was also at a time where the Cardinals were one of the top teams in baseball. Consistent pennant winners, World Series appearances, couple World Series titles. How proud were you to be a part of that, knowing what role you played in helping build championship ball players?
Well, I think if you really look at it, there's a lot to be proud of during that stint we had in St. Louis, right? So I think the big thing is that when even if you're at the lowest level in an organization, you can have some kind of impact. And it may not, and I used to tell guys when I travel around as a field coordinator, I said, the work you're doing with this young man right now, say it's in low A ball, the work you're doing with this young man right now, you have to maintain the process. Mm-hmm. You can't get away from the process and then the unfortunate part sometimes is you don't get to reap that benefit of the work you did with him, because the next year he's at a different level. But that foundation you set, that mindset you set with that young man at the level you're at is going to help him. And basically the next manager is going to benefit from that. And that's our responsibility of being in the minor leagues, is to get these guys prepared to go to the next level and then let the next guy have all the success with him sometimes too.
Just a couple more questions for you, but you've made a wonderful career for yourself in the game of baseball. What would you say is your favorite memory?
Oh, Lord. I mean, there's so many of them. I mean, back when I was in college, and I used to have, like, scouts come into town, right? Yeah. And they go, hey, have you ever played pro ball? And I'm like, no. And they go, oh. And I'm like, why? He goes, well, it's tough to get into professional back then. Mm-hmm. If you never played. Yeah, it was very difficult, and it never happened, in all fairness. Nowadays it doesn't matter, right? I mean, if you have a certain skill set and an organization thinks you fit that model, then
Tony Vitello,
they're gonna take you, right? So it doesn't, because if you look back then, you see college football coaches going into NFL, you saw NBA's taking college basketball coaches, but there was never baseball coaches. Mm-hmm. That were taken even into the minor league system back then, if you never played pro ball before, because it was a huge fraternity, so to speak, right? But nowadays, I think it's great that some people that were college coaches are getting an opportunity in professional baseball, because there's some really good college coaches out there, and there's some really good professional coaches out there that may never get a chance to coach in the big leagues, but that doesn't mean they're not good coaches, because you need to have those guys. And I think that's one thing in St. Louis that I remember. We had the same staff for like 10 years. Yeah. I mean, Tony La Russa and his staff were up there, and nobody was going to the big leagues from the coaching side. But all of us in the minor leagues, we felt we were just as important, and they made us feel that way, of helping that big league club have success, as much success as we had during that time frame. So you feel a big part of it. I mean, your fingerprints on a lot of those players that it's not the reason why they got to the big leagues, but you didn't force them not to get to the big leagues,
right.
Which is, I think, just as important, of not trying to do something just to say you did something with a player and then he got to the big leagues. I mean, we had good process over there and a lot of continuity with the staff, which I thought was huge back then.
Consistency is always a big role. Last question before I let you go, and I think we touched on it earlier, but I'll just ask again. Whenever I finish these interviews, I always ask the player, when their playing days are over, what would they do? Well, you've made a career out of baseball. So if baseball hadn't worked out, what would you have done?
I probably would have been a radio guy somewhere. I think I would have been really good at it, to be honest with you. I studied it. You know, I was fortunate being raised in the area I had Ernie Harwell with the Tigers.
Yeah.
You know, and then you had Tom Hamilton's still with the Indians.
He's still there.
Guardians, yeah. Right? I mean, I had some guys that I transistor radio and listened to, and, you know, Vin Scully. I mean, and just picking up bits and pieces. And then in my college days, Bob Costas was huge. You know, and you could just the storytelling that those guys have. I mean, it was unbelievable. And I always used to sit and listen to Ernie Harwell, and he'd say, a fan from Livonia, Michigan caught that foul ball. And I'm like, how does he know that kid's from Livonia, right? And then he would just, Allen Park, he would throw, you know, all kinds of different cities out on a foul ball that went in the stands. And it just brought you to the radio, right? And you felt like you were at the game. And I think if I was doing baseball play-by-play, I think I would have been able to have a little bit of fun and draw people in to listen to the game. And I think I would have been very good at it.
There are a lot of things you said right now that I really relate to. Tell you what, if you ever get a game off, why don't you join me in the booth? We'll try to get that done.
Well, I don't know if I could do that, but no, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into being able to prepare for a broadcast, right? I mean, and then, you know, you don't have an internet or your plug's not working. You would have. It's all about finding solutions, right? So there's going to be tricks to it, so to speak, and I just think I would have been able to really have some charisma on the during the game, and be able to educate the people about the game. I think that would have been one of the things that I would have been able to really draw if I was in the broadcasting.
And again, that was manager Joe Kruzel of the Rocket City Trash Pandas. Through the first week of the season, the team is 4-5 on the season. We'll see you next week on the Josh Caray Show.